Welcome to another episode of the Distributed Data Show, brought to you by DataStax Academy, where we bring you the latest news and interview technical experts to help you succeed at building large-scale distributed systems.
Welcome to the Distributed Data Show. I'm Amanda, and I'm here with one of DataStax's Chief Graph Experts, Denise, and she's been so kind as to join us in our episode for the preview for Graph Day, which we're having actually here in San Francisco in September. So I know I'm going to learn a lot from this talk, and I'm so excited Denise is here.
Glad to be here. I'm excited to finally get to do an episode with you.
Awesome. Thank you. So you are one of our graph super experts. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are such a huge fan of graph.
So there's a little bit of a story here, Amanda, if you don't mind me taking us on a little tour.
Yes.
So I think the best way to describe this story is that when I had the opportunity to start my master's in mathematics, I was there on the online registration portal and I got locked out of all of the classes that I had to take, like real analysis, abstract algebra. And as a first year, I was really frustrated because I wasn't going to be making progress towards my degree. And the only thing open for me to register for was this course called graph theory. And I registered for it just because I had to take something. And up until the first class, I was completely dreading spending a whole semester studying what I thought was going to be a whole class on the theory of like bar charts or pie diagrams. I mean, really the theory of data visualization.
Right.
I really wasn't into it. And then I get in there on the first day of class, and Dr. Teresa Haynes, a very prominent professor and researcher in the field, she was there, kind of gave us a little chalk talk on how to think about your data and think about your life as a graph. And my entire world just opened up to this whole new paradigm of thinking that I've been studying now for over 10 years. And it's just been a complete passion of mine. I've always had whiteboards up in my house, and it's just always been how I like to think and solve problems.
Oh, that's awesome. You just said the most amazing thing. Think of your life as a graph. Can you tell us like one aspect of how you think of your life as a graph? That is such a cool way to think.
Yeah, I think it's there's a few different momentums in industry that have kind of made this a really prominent and important topic for now. And I think the best way to intro it is to think about just, like Facebook, because they're one of the first companies that really brought graph thinking to the forefront for anyone, whether you're in tech or you're not in tech. And that's the best way to think about it. You have Facebook, I have Facebook, so many people, billions of people around the world have Facebook. And that's the first way you can start thinking about your graph. Every person represents this entity or a node or a vertex. And if you're friends on Facebook, you would connect them and you would start to build up relationships. And you can think about the whole world as relationships between these people and whether or not they're connected. And then you can start getting into some interesting problems when you think about how far it takes you or how long it would take you to walk from one person to another person. Or if you think about communities of people that all are connected very tightly together. All of these start talking about different graph properties that you can study and graph properties that our customers model with DSE Graph. And it's fascinating from my perspective to both have this mental way to think about problems, but then also have the right timing in the industry to have a technology that can enable you to host your data, model it this way, and give you a way to look at your problems using an actual graph.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So it's really about analyzing relationship between things in just a different way, and maybe a way that fits in better with what you're actually trying to do.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Very cool.
I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I didn't necessarily think about everything in a spreadsheet. It was more about that human interaction and that relationship as to how things were related in life.
How do they actually connect? Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's a more natural way to think about your problem. It's a more natural way to begin to map business problems into different data structures when you kind of get into a technical conversation. And it's been a really fascinating industry and time to be a part of this industry.
So I think that's so great that it's so easy to use this like as a mind model of how you're going to represent things. It seems like it is once you kind of make that shift, it's easy to do. But I have a feeling that it's maybe easy for our minds to do, but a little bit tricky for the technology to do. So is this a hard problem to solve, or I have a sense that it is?
It is, and it's something that we haven't fully mapped out yet. And I think when you want to consider what is significantly hard about using graph databases and graph data in today's applications, it's that we're at the beginning, or maybe 4 or 5, 10 years in. I know people have been modeling and studying data like a graph for decades, but having the ability to put it in a database and have all of the different tools and open source software to use it today, that's kind of a new era for us. And so one of the technical difficulties that comes with that is not having, say, a fully paved path, pun intended with graphs, but you don't have a fully paved road in front of you in order to understand exactly the steps that you need to take to translate your mental model of your graph data into a production application that's going to be scalable and distributed. There's just a lot of technical options in there, and it's not fully outlined for anyone who needs to step up to the plate and use that tool.
It sounds like there's still a lot of investigation work and iterations and really science that's going into this. And so that must be very exciting for, yeah.
It is, and it's the right time if you enjoy that type of work. And that's exactly why I love getting to be here at DataStax and get to work on the problems our customers have and work with our product and solve these problems. Because this is the time to be making those kind of forging those paths for the production distributed graph problems that the world really does have. Absolutely. For years and decades, people have been solving and looking at, say, like clique detection for maybe like a smaller graph that would fit on your laptop. And that's an interesting problem. There's a lot of applications with that for doing cancer study and bioinformatics, all the way down to different ways that you would disseminate information in social networks. But at the same time, that's not going to be the same problem that you need to solve when you have, say, an asset graph that needs to be held across 32 different nodes in the cloud and be able to query that real time because the other end application can never go down. Those are two completely different graph problems,
right.
But both of them need solved today.
So is that kind of where you're seeing the future of graph? Is it in the cloud? Is it at scale? And
that's a great question. And the future of graph thinking really comes down to being able to digest and break down your problem into the different components and have the ability to take a multimodal approach to solving your problem. That's where the future is going. It's that you have these larger problems that require graph thinking to solve them, and there's not going to be one tool that's going to solve every version. And there's also not one tool that solves every bit and piece on the way. So the future of where we're going is being able to get more concrete and get more structured around identifying graph problems, identifying the use cases and the components of them, and being able to repeatedly solve them as different types of problems.
Systematically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, over time.
Yes.
With more study and investigation. Oh,
it's going to take a bit. And that's why it's exciting, because the problems that inherently and naturally fall as graph problems, they're not simple. They're extremely complex, and they're taking a new paradigm or a new way that you need to mentally walk through that problem. And so that's why it's such an interesting part to get to cycle through and iterate through what's working and what's not working.
Awesome. So let's shift gears here a little bit, because I want to talk about Graph Day in San Francisco in September. And I think I heard or I read somewhere that someone I know is doing the keynote.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to do the keynote at the upcoming Graph Day conference. I've had the opportunity to really get to know the organizers and Lynn Bender over the years. I've been to every single one and given and I've had a talk at every one except for one, because that was like the year the plague came through Graph Day. But I'm especially looking forward to this talk for two reasons. One, because I found, I think, a pretty fun topic. And then the other is because DataStax as a whole has a pretty strong crew of people who are coming to give supporting talks and really get out there the message about what it takes to solve distributed graph problems in production. So those are the two avenues. Where would you like to start?
Yeah, so I would really like to hear a little bit more about your keynote, because when I was reading the abstract, it said something, you mentioned in your abstract something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is practical advice. Because we can always talk high level and theoretical, but people really have to use these technologies and they have to use it in production. So practical advice is just something I'm always fascinated by, even though it may just be simple, but it's really what you need to know. So yeah, do you have a sneak peek of any of that? I don't want to spoil your talk.
No, it wouldn't be spoiling it, and I'm glad that we want to talk about that because that is a topic that is near and dear to my heart as well. Because it's, DataStax is really leading the charge today in building and delivering distributed graphs in production, and I think the community in general is, well, how are you guys doing it? What's happening? What does that look like? And so the sneak peek of that is I'm going to kind of draw a parallel or tell a story about what that looks like, and it's going to be very synonymous to your journey if you were, playing SimCity 2000. So it's going to be an interesting mix between nostalgia of my favorite video game from growing up, and what it was like to iterate through building your city and needing to change your roads and needing to look at the different density issues you had when you were constructing in that game, and how those are synonymous to real problems you experience when you're building with graph databases in production.
That sounds fantastic, and I can't
hopefully
wait.
I can pull it together.
Yeah, because if you can walk us through that, then I think you'll have everybody there hooked. They will be
Maybe.
All ears and all eyes. So that sounds fantastic. I'm very lucky that I get to join and be there for this.
Well, thank you for the support.
Absolutely. So, and then you mentioned there's going to be some other folks from DataStax and the graph community in general who will be there as well with supporting talks. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have a few talks that are also going to be there from DataStax, and because I don't want to end up not listing everybody, I do know that we have some talks that are talking about the transition from RDBMS thinking into graph thinking. We have some fantastic talks lined up about different ways to model around supernodes, and also another one around the different metrics that you find when you're trying to run analytics with Vertex programs or doing Vertex-centric computing versus looking at using open source graph frames, and what the trade-offs are between those two options. So we've got quite the set of heavy hitters coming in to discuss what we have personally been helping our customers build and what we also have been building as well. And so I think there's going to be a really nice theme about that's really starting to give everyone else a picture into how we're making it work for all of the customers that we have here.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited for Graph Day. I think it's going to be a great learning for me because I'm kind of new to this space. Actually, I've just been going through boot camp here at DataStax, and so they've just this was Graph Week for us. So this was the perfect day to have this talk with you, and it is very exciting. So I'm really excited to be there and to be talking with you. And so the last thing I wanted to mention before we go is I heard you're writing a book.
Yes. Mentally switching onto that topic. So
I hope good things, not bad. Yeah.
No, great things. Just heavy context switching, but that's not a problem. So yeah. I'm very excited about this book project that we have coming out together with O'Reilly. I convinced Matthias to jump on this crazy train with me to put together a book that's going to discuss and disseminate the concepts that we've been talking about really on this episode together. What does it really take to digest this mental model of a graph problem into components that are going to deliver it at scale in production? So this book is going to start from the foundation of where those problems primarily start, which from our perspective, it usually starts with what we call an SVOC, or a single view of the customer. That's where I would say almost every DataStax customer is starting. You start there, and then essentially you're building upon your foundation, upon your graph foundation. And we're going to be building upon that throughout the book to help deliver those more multimodal, complex graph problems that need a platform like DataStax to solve. So it's primarily going to be a book that is discussing graph thinking, discussing how you would break down problems and how you need to apply really advanced topics like partitioning and latency and different types of distributed issues that you come up to when you're trying to build a graph in production across a distributed cluster. And we're going to be stepping through that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it come together.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I really like the way it sounds like it builds upon itself. So it sounds like you don't have to already be a graph expert when you pick up the book. So,
right, exactly. So that was the goal. The goal was to target the audience that has been hearing about graph problems, and they can see it, but they don't necessarily have the tools or the technical components to take this concept into prod. And so that's what we're really going to be focusing on. We're going to be really starting from the beginning with identifying what you need to be considering, explaining the trade-offs of each version, and honestly presenting some real opinions, such as if you're going to be working with your graph problem and it's primarily going to be staying in a certain structure, it might be better tuned to stay with an RDBMS system instead of bringing on the heavy hitter of a graph platform. So we're trying to give practical advice there as well.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it sounds like a book that I can definitely read cover to cover. So I'm super excited. So
I'm looking for more editors. Do you want to help me out?
You can send it my way. I don't know how much feedback or input I could put on it, but I would love to be one of the first readers. So I'll definitely take that up for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was a fantastic conversation, and I'm already excited for Graph Day. So it's only, 20 days away? So
it's one of my favorite conferences, and it's one of my favorite conferences primarily because it's like a developer first, more of a grassroots feeling conference. So people there are usually in attendance because they want to solve real world problems, and they have a real world problem that they're solving. So I love the community that you get to meet at Graph Day, and I can't wait to see everybody again. It's always nice to have those few touch points a year where you get the whole community together. So I'm really looking forward to the event and honored that they've asked me to kick it off. So hopefully I can serve it well.
Oh, you will, for sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Denise. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Amanda. I always love getting to see you guys, and looking forward to seeing you again and seeing you at Graph Day.
Thank you. Well, this has been the Distributed Data Show. I'm Amanda. And comment, check us out on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again for the Distributed Data Show. We love your feedback, so go to the Distributed Data Show page on DataStax Academy and tell us what you think. You can also find us on the DataStax Academy YouTube channel, or find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get great podcasts. While you're there, make sure and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.